Hello and welcome to the Mead Hall. Today we have a little podcast for you, and in which we're going to discuss our future plans for the show or the channel. And today we actually have the full team in attendance, or the full team as of today. And so, as this is one of the first videos, we'll probably go around quickly and just introduce ourselves as per usual. We will cut this out as videos go on, but this is obviously the start. So my name is Jay, and I kind of act as the presenter and host most of the time.
Hello, I'm John, one of the players.
I'm Elle and I'm in charge of social media somehow, and baby beginner gamer, I guess. I don't really know how to define what I am yet, but yeah.
I'm Joe. I'm very ill. I'm also a player.
Meet our resident Nurgle. Today's first topic then,
Yeah.
shall we say?
Yes. Topic uno.
Why'd you make it weird?
Channel plans at hand.
Channel plans at hand, yes. So for the first thing that I want to discuss is I've got a couple of little ideas for how we can make some changes to the way the game is played to make it easier for us, and also to make it feel a bit less, well, add a bit more narrative to it, but also remove some of the things that annoy me about 40k.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. So the first and most obvious one is that true line of sight.
Okay.
Okay.
True line of sight, where the bit that annoys me about true line of sight, and I think Joe will definitely back me up with this bit, is that if you model certain things in a certain way, you're in a massive disadvantage.
Oh god. Right. Yeah. I get where you come from there.
You
mean
Custodian Spears.
Custodian spears being stuck up above models' characters' heads,
Or the-
wings that go over the bases.
Or the banned Tau Fire Warrior lying down. No, Pathfinder.
Yes, all of those things. So, my proposal is that we would operate under the idea that the model counts as being visible if it's within the profile of its base, so like an imaginary cylinder.
Okay, yeah, like Infinity does a similar thing. They always have like a template for each base.
And then we will use our best judgment when it comes to height. So we'll ignore, for example, a Custodian Spear. If you shoot the spear, you're not going to kill the model, so that does not count as a targetable region on the model.
Yeah. Like you almost like a majority of the body.
Or
being
something
the target.
that makes sense for you to shoot it that could cause significant
Yeah,
harm.
like there's an arms kind of stuck out is not going to necessarily be like a Marine can afford to lose a finger and probably keep on fighting.
Yeah.
But you like take an arm, maybe it's like
But for the sort of the flat plane, it is just going to be the base will act as the.
so anything
perimeter.
spilling out over
Anything spilling out over does not count.
works well for the number of times I've printed something that was too big for the base.
And obviously we will just use our best judgment for the height stuff.
Yeah.
Mainly because, as you guys will all attest, and as you guys will find out eventually, I do like my crazy conversions, and nothing I build tends to come out of the box.
I mean, the captain in the first game is somewhat of a giveaway of that. Bear in mind,
Yeah.
he's meant to be on like a little base, and he's currently jumping off of a rock.
Yeah.
So,
It's pretty cool though.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's way more fun that way.
And no Tyranids models actually cover their base. Then none of them are true to their base, even the GW ones. So
Yeah.
I mean, yours are some of them. I don't think I could make line of sight on them, given their tactical rocks that they are bringing with them. Entire stalactites that they can stalagmites that they could hide behind.
to be fair, with the gargoyles, that is just to give them the height.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah.
It's more fun than having them on clear stand.
but yes.
Okay, so true line of sight.
True line of sight.
I'm gonna make a note just so we've got some things.
Ooh.
And then the other sort of the other one that I've thought of recently is the fact that the warlord of your army doesn't really do anything.
That does irritate me in terms of like.
And I've got a potential solution.
Okay.
which will also make Battle Shock more interesting in the game.
Ooh.
Now I'm definitely interested. Yeah.
Now, my concept here is that when your warlord is killed, your entire army immediately takes Battle Shock.
Ooh.
And so you roll for it as normal,
Yeah.
and then every command phase subsequent to that, you must always roll for Battle Shock regardless of how many wounds lost. Because if your warlord is no longer the battlefield, you don't have that anchor point to stay on the field.
Okay.
As a concept.
I think we may have to do some checking, because I think there are, so like the Dark Angels have a load of things which run off of Battle Shock, which may weirdly make it good to just run a warlord in, die, and then everybody ends up on Battle Shock because they've got a bunch of things which go off of Battle Shock being higher.
If that is the case, then I would be worried if any of us played it.
I love the idea of just somebody being like, right, here's my warlord. You've taken the weakest model. Why would you do that? He's running straight at you to die, and booking it across the field to death.
You're definitely right in terms of.
I don't think it's one specific scenario that I don't even know how much it goes.
Personally, as far as what we're doing is concerned, that's not the way we play.
None of us are trying to game the system.
We're not trying to game the system. I don't really think that's an issue.
For the Tyranid Shadow in the Warp, would that mean that essentially I could force 2 Battle Shocks? So, like,
Yeah.
right, your warlord's down.
Yeah.
You take a Battle Shock in command phase, and then I'd Shadow in the Warp.
Don't see why not. Doubles your chances to cause Battle Shock.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't think that particular power is particularly strong anyway. So.
No, but and it would be a, like, playing it, and narratively, it would make sense that they would be like, we've taken out the Tyranids aren't dumb, they know what they're doing, they take out the leader, they do that emanation that causes the Battle Shock to go through. They'd probably stack those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely one to see and have play around with, make sure that it doesn't.
It would definitely spice things up.
Yeah, and it makes the wall. I think
it gives you a bit of an incentive to try and keep your warlord alive for a start.
Yeah, I think there's probably. I feel like, and this is broader speaking to warlord changes, is that I feel like there should be some probably benefit that comes with it.
Yeah. There is, interestingly, as I've recently discovered, there is a couple of command stratagems that require your warlord to be on the table to use.
Okay.
So
Like which ones?
So there is one in the Necrons Codex.
Okay, makes sense.
Hypercrypt Legion. I believe there is one that allows you to reanimate your reserves targets your warlord. So your warlord actually has to be alive and on the field in order to do that.
Okay.
So it's a very niche little thing where the warlord actually has any impact on the game.
Okay.
So
Because as far as I know, there isn't even a second Overslay the Warlord anymore. In the Leviathan deck.
I'd have to check through the deck.
I don't think there is. I did have a skim through, but I can't remember if that's actually in there or not.
Okay. So yeah, warlord changes I think make sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Any others?
Those are the two primary ones that I've been playing around with in my mind recently.
Okay.
Nice.
So are there anything?
Any elements that have been bugging us in terms of 10th?
Yeah. I've got a couple of other ideas that we can come back to.
I mean, one that has been previously discussed outside of game, but putting it to camera, is allied detachments, wider spanning in terms of, I know you've got ideas for allied units.
Yes, I do.
And broader allied options, I think is always a good one. That's more of like a just adding more options in. I think this again, I don't know exactly how this fits within the whole 10th spectrum, or the 10th system, but the points do. I like the simplified system. I think it's much easier to build, but I do find myself, I will build a list and it will be over or under. Yeah. So trying to find something that fits in a bit nicer or gives kind of more options in terms of how to build stuff.
I mean, a simple solution I think that GW could have gone down is just more enhancements.
Yeah.
Cheaper ones.
Yeah, more enhancements could have been.
More cheaper enhancements. Or go back to the really old schools. Everything's really simple, but your characters are Build-A-Bear.
I've been reading through a third ed Space Marine Codex, and that was great fun. Just being like, ooh, here's your captain. Right, now here's your list of options,
Yep.
and you get your exact captain that you want.
That'd be really nice.
That would still keep the simplicity of most of the army, but then you can spend the time on your characters.
I feel like at some point we're discussing this, and then it just ends up becoming we write a whole new game system. So we probably need to turn back from that. I was wondering, and it's one that I need to read up into, is core rules of Age of Sigmar. If you are a faction that is under on point, you get an advantage. And it's like a scaling system depending on how I think it's a scaling system depending on how far you are under the number of points. So it's like if if you've got, say, one person's brought a full army, they brought 2,000 points, and say you've only managed to get up to like 1,500 points, you are then on the back foot, but they give you an advantage to kind of match that distance. But again, I'd have to do some reading on that one. That's the first one that's been on the to read list. Not playing Age of Sigmar. The book has sat there.
I mean, one thing that we
core rule book for Age of Sigmar. I just got it.
one benefit we do have, which you guys haven't probably looked at or experienced yet, but I have read on it, is that bit like what I was saying about the enhancement system. Is in Crusade, which is what we will be moving into.
Yes.
You can access every single enhancement for your characters, regardless of what detachments you're running.
Really?
Oh, cool.
You lock in and buy them, so they become a permanent fixture.
So
on
even
the
if you
date sheet.
change
So
detachment,
even if you change the detachment, you still keep the enhancement.
Oh, cool.
So therefore, you will be able to have those little point increases. So, like I was saying, having more enhancements would kind of alleviate some of that issue. Technically speaking, I say for the Necrons, you've got 5 detachments. That's now what is it? 4 enhancements per detachment.
Yep.
So that's 20 enhancements I can now access.
Wow.
Nice.
So
And if I ever show you my list, I have a lot of characters in my list.
That's unsurprising for you, to be fair.
First Company, Gladius, Firestorm, Ironstorm, Anvil Siege.
So there is a metric there for actually
Ultramarine
having a lot of
Salamanders, White
leeway
Scars,
points.
Iron Hands, Imperial Fists. Am I forgetting any of the Codex compliant?
Not
Raven Guard.
Oh yeah. How did I forget that?
Just that sneaky. And Death Watch. Okay, so I have 8 potential detachments to pick enhancements from.
There you go. So, actually, to answer your question, I think we do already have a potential way of solving
Okay,
that
well,
issue,
that solves my problem.
which was actually built in by Games Workshop. Well done, GW.
Just had to play Crusade.
Yes. Which is fine, because that is in the entire premise of this channel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah?
Anything else?
Narrative stuff.
Oh, me? No, I mean, I'm really new,
You're
so
not-
I don't really have, well, okay, I don't really have, like, anything that I would want to change, but something that really bugs me always is when you want to advance something and then you can't shoot afterwards. It really bugs me!
There is a fix to that, which is just the weapons that you take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it just really
Or just
annoys me.
pick an army that doesn't shoot.
Oh,
and just
yeah,
pick
but
world eaters.
I have like a melee-based army because
Yeah.
obviously I'm running a.
Which is why I find it
Adeptus
strange that you find this annoying, because most of the time you're not shooting anyway.
I know, but there's been like a couple of moments where
I feel like it's a system that will probably, and this is gonna become a recurring thing, isn't it? It's a system that will probably be fixed when your codex comes out, because like
please release it. I want it.
you got a codex like Tyranid Codex led to a whole bunch of additions. I don't know all of them, but I know. So speaking from the Space Marine Codex, there was issue 1 which says if your weapons don't have assault, they get assault.
Yeah.
All of them. Yeah, same
Yeah,
thing.
there's a
There's
similar
one.
thing for Tyranids.
Yeah, if your weapons so it's like the Firestorm. If your weapons don't have assault, they get assault. If you go Anvil, if they don't have heavy, they get heavy.
Yeah.
So where it is that kind of like system, there will likely be a version of Sisters which will have your weapons now have assault.
There isn't one like that in the Necron Codex.
Okay, well maybe they're not going
That is
quite as
one-
cookie cutter for every
that
single
is
one.
one of the different ones.
Yeah,
Necrons
but
are lucky stars.
well, but would Necrons?
Yeah, they would. They would highly benefit from an
No, no.
attachment that could do that.
Yes, they would benefit from it. But would it make sense for them to be an attachment? Like, I don't picture Necrons doing that.
Yeah, because they're a slow. They're a slow.
Have you
advance.
guys not been paying attention to the Hypercrypt?
Yes, I know they teleport all over the place
Yeah.
and do all weird shenanigans.
Basically, if they wanted it, there is a way they could do that.
Yeah, but they do have assault weapons. They must
Yeah.
have some assault
Yeah,
weapons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not many.
You just have to find who has
Yeah.
assault weapons and take those.
Yeah.
Joe,
Hello.
Anything you would like to add?
or anything you'd like to change about 10th?
I just never like the battle shock systems in general. I think.
I do because it gives me miracle dice.
Yeah, but I like the runaway. I like the runaway battle shock.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember which edition it's from. I think it's from current Horror Fantasy, right?
Well, I can't remember when it changed. It was always the way it worked, and then at some point in the time that I left Warhammer, it disappeared. And I
Yeah.
think it was 8th. I think it was still run off the table in 7th backwards.
Yeah, I like run off the table battle shock. I think it makes a lot of sense. It makes it more. Makes positioning quite important for battle shock and things.
Does that not? I mean, because I only joined in 9th and haven't played anything, and haven't played any of the other previous editions. Although I do at some point, want to go back and try them. But would that not just lead to everybody in the middle, and then because that's the furthest distance from any of the edges?
Not as such.
Okay.
It did happen. There were, but I suppose, I wasn't competitive when I was 14 and playing Warhammer, but we weren't really. No, it didn't really happen that way.
Okay.
There were occasions where you're like, oh, this unit's probably going to break, so I'll move it further.
Yeah, because it's
into the
a
board.
D6 towards the edge of the board, so it's like
Yes. Well. Yeah, I can't.
it's
quite
only as
remember.
much as an advance. So
Okay, so not like immediately run off the board. Yeah.
Actually, I think you did have to move your whole movement. I think. Can't remember.
No.
It's been a long
It's a
time.
moot point. It doesn't do it anymore.
doesn't do it
So
anymore.
like some more interactions with Battle Shock.
yeah.
I mean,
I
personally,
just think, for me, the fact that it's such a big part of the Tyranid's army rule, and then that it does so little, like
It's a bit
personally,
random.
I think you underestimate how good the Battleshock concept is. Like
Yeah.
losing OC, losing the ability to use stratagems is massive. As I've found out in a few games I've played now, it is really big. I think the problem with what you've got, particularly when it's supposed to be a big part of the Tyrannus thing, is it's not easy. It doesn't go very often.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
forcing Battleshock across the table sounds like it should be good.
And it
But-
probably would be very good
If it wasn't Space Marines who have leadership 6 on everything,
Yeah.
or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Battleshock
like
system
Guard would probably,
it would probably
break.
be quite nasty, but
Yeah.
I think the
For
Battleshock,
Space Marines, it's just essentially
the effect
a
of
lot
Battleshock
dice
is
rolls.
very good. But yeah, I think
like
the
what's
Tyrannus
the-
need a bit of a boost. So, is there anything else?
Off the top of my head, can't really think of anything else. So, like, yeah, I just think Battleshock should be better, but
Yeah.
I think I honestly think that there probably will be some things that will come out in terms of adding new stuff
Yeah.
to Battleshock. I think the wider community has looked at Battleshock and kind of gone, it's better than it kind of used to be. Like the morale system was clunky before. I think it's neater, but I don't think it does enough to kind of
yeah, I was
Warranted.
quite excited for it when it came out.
because
just-
it's straightforward. It's very easy to understand. And
It's very nice. It's just that it doesn't like go off.
Yeah, I think with everything having such high leadership, there probably needs to be a few more ways to accrue minuses, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, something that... There needs to be stuff that happens as a result of Battleshock outside of OC. Because, like, that's what I think is like the biggest issue for Reavers as a unit is they're built around battle shock. They're like, okay, we're going to run in and we are going to cause a battle shock test. Awesome. And they cause it when they do that charge. And then it goes around to the, they do the battle shock test, let's say they fail the battle shock test at that moment in time. Okay, they are now battle shocked, which means they could potentially take that objective. Start the command phase, reroll battle shock test, they pass, those Reavers just evaporate because Reavers just evaporate.
Yeah.
Like it almost needs to be like they do that and they get pushed back, say slightly, or something happens as a result of it.
I mean, in that scenario though, the Reavers are cheap, so the idea is that
They're not that cheap.
they're not.
They're not.
They
I
always
mean,
used to be.
they're. I don't know. I'll have to check app, but.
'Cause I think the whole point would be you do that to jump on the objective and steal it for that turn, and then they die.
I mean, yes. Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
The Reavers are. They're cheap, but they're 85. Like a squad of assault intercessors are 85, and you're going to get some damage out of them, and they're going to survive a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess Reavers you're likely to get points out of. But with the leadership of everything being so high, you're spending 85 points and you're not necessarily
Going to get anything out
going to
of.
get anything.
Which I think goes back to the original point about actually making it something that does get off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think generally the rules of I like the running away thing because I like that thematically.
I appreciate it from my nostalgia point of view.
Yeah, but I think technically the rules work fine. I think it just needs to go off more often.
Although that does lead to the potential hilarity of a bunch of Reavers charging Tyranids and the Tyranids running.
Oh.
Possible.
Which is just a funny concept in like
Yeah.
I guess the difficulty with things like yes the route, the retreat, all that kind of stuff. There are some factions where it doesn't make sense.
What about some kind of battle fatigue?
But Tyranids also have that whole synapse thing of they roll
Yeah.
3 dice, so they're less likely for it to go
That
off
is
anyway
true.
thematically.
Yeah, okay, and then potentially, was it battle fatigue?
Battle fatigue. So as the game goes on, everyone starts taking minuses to leadership.
Not
That
bad.
makes
Oh,
sense.
what, like...
As the battle goes on, everyone's becoming more and more.
So what you do, like very simple maths wise, is it's either, I guess, additive. You roll. Hold on. You're tricky because so if it's 6 plus, you're trying to roll and you're trying to get over a 6, aren't you?
Yes.
So then the battle round gets added to that number.
Yes.
-1. So
Yeah.
battle round 1 it's 0, battle round 2 it's 1, battle round 3. So it gets higher and
Yeah.
higher as the game goes on.
So the further into the game, the more likely battle shock is going to go off.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Which then also gives you an
Make a note
incentive
on
to
that.
hold off your Tyranids, Shadow and the Warp until later in the game.
Yeah, could you do something potentially with characters as well? Because I feel like potentially characters, like getting rid of characters, could be a hit to leadership.
I have said that previously.
But I
Well,
suppose
you
for
mean-
attached units,
We kind of got that. We kind of got that with the wall suggestions.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think the Warlord would triggers it across the entire board
Because then,
anyway.
also, if you do, so say like you take a battle shock test when you lose a character, it then it becomes kind of less of a incentive to take a character then,
Yeah, we don't want.
because characters are fun.
Also,
Yeah.
Also, we don't want to pile on too much in one go.
Yeah.
No, I think
The
just
the additive battle shock value is actually like something that could work quite
Yeah.
neatly into the system as like a battle fatigue system,
yeah, I quite like that.
because that makes sense in the grander scheme of like the battle going on and kind of things like that, which then means potentially your battle shock goes off a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
You know, the sisters, as the battle goes on, gain more faith, all that kind of stuff. That fits within it.
Wears them down
Yeah.
a bit, and also makes sense for like people being taken away from the battle. Like,
Yeah. Okay, that's a good change.
Yeah.
Happy with that.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I think unless anybody else had any other thoughts or feelings.
Well, I've got a couple more we can float.
Yeah, go on then.
Going back to some old rules again.
Because the old ways were always the best ways.
Wrecked vehicles staying on the table and becoming terrain.
Does that mean that I have to make a whole separate version of everything but ruined?
No.
Okay.
All you do is just put a bit of fluff on it.
Okay, that's
You got a little burn marker or something.
That's fine.
Or hopefully, if you build your models the right way and you've got removable turrets and stuff, you just pop a mark on it. Take the turret off.
Ooh, I could have like an exploded rhino.
Yes.
You mean that
You could.
Jamie can build an exploded rhino?
no.
Yeah, I mean that.
Well, you already have.
Rhinos are free anyway.
I do actually. Yeah, keep it just. It's an old. I just remember those days when you would purposely drive your vehicles out in front of units to get blown up, and then it dies, but it stays there, so it's still covered.
Oh, that's still that saying about
I like
purposely
that.
driving your vehicles into
That's a
explode.
lot more realistic as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
I like that.
Narrative one.
but
How
the-
does
but
that
the-
work
but the-
for my monsters?
And that's the tricky one. But the other thing would be is with Deadly Demise, if Deadly Demise goes off, the vehicle is removed, as in it's literally exploded into pieces.
Okay.
Deadly Demise scares me.
Deadly Device scared me when there's the Hierophant.
Especially
It's a Hierophant, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Hierophant.
especially for Morven Val, because if I choose her as my warlord.
Does she explode?
Yeah.
What's
She has
that?
Deadly Demise 1.
Oh, that's...
That's
And
It's Deadly
yeah,
Demise
I know.
2d6?
Yeah, but it's still,
2d6,
it's
you.
still scary because
One.
if she's my warlord and I have her attached to a unit of warsuits.
it doesn't harm the warsuit.
I know, but I love her to blow up.
Well, because for her to go down from the warsuits have to die first. The warsuits aren't going to take the battle, aren't going to take the Deadly Demise. It's anybody else who's around her. At that point, you just run up straight.
And Deadly Demise 1 is incidental.
Well, it still scares me.
Yeah, Deadly Demise 2d6 is like potentially wiping out a whole unit of
Deadly Demise 2d6. I mean, it doesn't regularly go off.
But when it does.
Well,
Well,
it
that's my next point, actually.
Now, but I can make it go off.
You
so-
can choose to make it off, which
Yeah.
you did very well. And I regretted my Deadly Demise roll on that Dreadnought.
Boom.
Yeah. I think I took out more of my guys than took out of yours. Oh well. There was a point I was going to get.
Yeah.
Come with this?
I don't know where you were going with this, but yes, I was talking about vehicles staying on the board if they get blown up. Well, if they get destroyed, if they get blown up, they are still removed.
Yes.
Because that adds a little bit of extra tactics to it as well, which I quite like.
That was it. I was going to say, it does remind me of one of my favourite old rule systems when you could take Chaos Rhinos with plasma guns.
Ooh.
So they used to be able to take them with plasma guns, and my favourite tactic that I heard somebody do is they took, I don't know, it was like three rhinos, filled them with Corn Berserkers, booked them full pelt up to the other side, fired them all overcharge with as many plasma guns as they can, because when they exploded, that was during the shooting phase, not the charge phase, so all the Corn Berserkers that essentially popped out of them like pinatas then immediately charged. It's just a wonderful image of just rhinos exploding, being full of Corn Berserkers, and just be like, and now we run.
That's a very corn image.
It's such a good image. It was like, what do we use these rhinos for? Exploding.
I can see the cinematics in my brain right now.
So good.
But yeah, so the vehicle dies, it goes, and it stays as a.
It becomes terrain, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So like slightly blocking line of sight.
Line of sight blocking provides cover if you're obscured.
Yeah.
Just adds to the field and makes it look a bit more interesting.
Becomes a bit more of a dynamic feel. Does that not run the risk of you potentially can you tactically park something and then it explodes and then it essentially becomes like a block?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that would be the whole point. Yeah.
I like this.
I mean, there's been.
I'm not sure what I'm going to park in a place that's going to make it explode.
I mean, there was a point in the game me and Els played on our own, and I literally said, "Park your rhino in front of your unit so I can't shoot it."
Yeah, it was the Repentia,
But-
because I drove the rhino round because I fill it with my Argoflagellants. So 2 units of Argoflagellants because I have.
fit in a rhino?
Yeah, because I think I have.
The rhino can technically take Space Marine, so yeah. Why am I questioning
Do they
Argoflagellants
go
going
in
in?
units of 5?
What do?
The Argoflagellants.
3 or 10.
Yeah, so I have
Combat Patrol has 3.
I have 13 Ogre Flagellants altogether. So I put 10 Ogre Flagellants in the Rhino, drove it round, and then like my Repentia were like hiding behind pipeline. So I just went to like the Repentia are here, and I just went with the Rhino like that, and it was perfect. They survived like half of the game until I stupidly ran them out in the wrong place and then they got exploded.
But to cycle to the point would be that was something that we did in the game.
Yep.
The problem with that tactic was as soon as the Rhino dies,
The Rhino goes away.
the Rhino goes away.
But if the Rhino... Yeah, no.
But if it stays, then
Which
yeah.
realistically, in a real world scenario, which we are trying to emulate to a certain degree in our war games, the Rhino wouldn't necessarily just disappear.
Yeah.
You know, it would have to be something catastrophic to literally remove a vehicle from the table, or from a battlefield.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted that caveat of if Deadly Demise goes off, the vehicle is literally eviscerated.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's
really good narrative wise.
Cool.
Just adds a little extra element as well.
Just that's
Added a
interesting stuff.
spice.
Let's get some, like, stuff to represent.
Oh, I've already thought of it.
And the thing is, there's enough of a drawback because if you have melee characters behind it, and
It's now in the way.
it's now now in the way. You've now got to go over it or round it to charge.
Yeah.
So
It's a tactical choice.
there's enough negatives that it's like, yeah, it balances itself out pretty
It's
much.
not a no-brainer. It's a choice.
But yeah,
Cool. Yeah. Happy with that.
Cool.
What do you think about Deadly Demise?
Well, so this is a concept we kind of used before in the past. I don't know if you remember. Back when we were playing.
is it the overkill?
The Overkill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did try this out a long time ago. Back in 8th edition, I want to say.
Ninth.
Is it 9th?
Yeah.
That's
We didn't.
early.
We only played like one game of 8th.
Oh, we did, yeah. I forget that. So long ago.
So many editions.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that, obviously, when you destroy, say, a vehicle or a monster that has Deadly Demise, and we probably would limit this to vehicles and monsters,
Yeah.
if you do more damage than it has wounds,
Yeah.
any damage that goes over to a certain point adds a modifier to the Deadly Demise rule. So, for example, I shoot let's say a rhino that's got 10 wounds.
Yeah.
I shoot it with 2 las cannons, and I do exactly 10 wounds. Cool, dies, nothing special. Roll your d6, no worries. I shoot it with 4 las cannons, and I've done, let's say I roll particularly poorly, and I do 11 wounds. It dies, nothing happens. I roll well the next time though, on this 3rd mythical rhino, and I've done 16 damage.
Oh god.
So I've now done 50% more damage to the rhino than it had wounds initially. That would give you a +1 to the Deadly Demise roll because it's taken so much firepower that it's more likely to go up in smoke.
Okay, so with that rule, does that go off of the base health value? Or
Base
does
health value.
Okay.
To show that it was a particularly big impact for that side of the vehicle.
Am I the only one that thinks that being evil?
I think
No.
I think it doesn't. It won't go off nearly enough to be unbalanced. It's just a fun rule that, because like realistically,
to try and avoid.
because it's not like, well, it's not going to go off if you're like whittling down a vehicle over time. It's only going to happen if you
If you do like an
pump it
excessive...
full.
And to also caveat, that doesn't, it's not, you don't add the damage from individual weapons either. It's got to be that one shot that does the damage.
Yeah, it's like one thing hits it with enough force that it causes
Yeah.
yeah.
it
So
to
like,
go.
so like
So I can
even
never
if-
do that to your Hierophant.
Yeah.
Not unless you had like a Titan. Yes, you can't just fire like
Titan price?
You can't just fire 50 las guns into a vehicle and do 20 wounds to it and suddenly it just explodes. So the example I use with the 4 las cannons probably doesn't really work, but you get my point.
Yeah.
If I was firing, I don't know, a shadow sword main cannon, can't remember what it's called, at your rhino, and it
You
does.
could have said any name at that point, and I wouldn't have been able to tell
Or
because
like-
I
or
barely
like
remember what a Shadow Sword
The
is.
Bio-Titans, like, marine killer guns.
Yeah,
That goes into
Yeah.
Rhino.
yeah.
The idea of that then, the idea of it then applies to everything. Like, Marines get deadly demise if you hit them with enough force. Marines just exploding like landmines.
That will be for the April Fool's episode.
Everything has deadly demise.
Everything has deadly demise D6.
Oh my god.
It just becomes all
And
that,
it's not units, models.
it literally all that then becomes is you hit one and like it's just chain
It's
reaction.
just chain reaction, yeah.
You know in Kingsman Secret Service where
Yep.
the chips in their heads go off and their heads just explode in fireworks. That's what I'm picturing.
If you haven't seen that movie, by the way, that was a spoiler.
Sorry, it's been out for like
Yeah,
4
it's been out
years. It's been out for a while. If that's a spoiler for you, then you need to sort your life out because you should have watched that movie.
I've not seen that movie.
I'm so sorry. Oh, I hate you.
Someone's actually going to watch that tonight.
Genuinely, actually, I haven't seen that movie.
Should I just leave?
No.
Just go.
Okay.
So quick to judge.
Yeah, deadly demise. Cool.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Like the idea?
I think that sounds. I think
I
yeah,
love that
I like the
idea a
idea of the I like the idea of the overkill. Makes me happy to have some. I don't have big guns. I have some big guns.
But if you have a big gun, you have that satisfaction knowing you could just force something to blow up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
namely a Tyranid.
Yes.
I've not got a vendetta against them.
Yeah. So to actually qualify the rule, then you would actually have to do 50% of its starting wounds in a negative value to get +1.
That was worded like a GW rule. If they have, you have to do 50. You have to do 50% more than their base health.
Yes.
Cool.
Sort of.
What?
Yeah, so
50% more than their base health in a single shot.
50% more than their base health. Yes.
So 150%
Yeah.
in a single shot.
Yes.
Cool.
But then if you do 100% or more, you get +2.
So for any of my,
So if
for
you
it
do
to apply to
two-
any of my
so-
monsters,
so-
you've got to do 15 wounds in 1 hit.
Or do 60 wounds to a Hierophant.
Yeah.
But if you want to get it on a 4+,
Oh god.
45 wounds to a Hierophant for it to take effect on the
Yeah.
so.
Is that in a single? Now is that a single dice or is that a single attack of a weapon?
it's, a single weapon attack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that does that many wounds? I was going through the list. I don't think there was even anything that could one-shot a Hierophant.
How many wounds does a Hierophant have?
30.
30, yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and go through the entire list of.
Well, the Doomsday Arc, I think, has...
Oh, what's the Tachyon Arrow got?
Oh, that's rubbish.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's
Yeah, it's not as good as it is in
rubbish.
the
In the
Mindset
book,
game.
in the book. We don't talk about the book yet. Somebody's still reading it,
Yeah. Please don't worry.
but I know the bit.
Yeah.
God, that's such a good book. Anyway. Okay, so yeah, so Deadly Demise. Happy with that. Anything else?
That's it from me, and I feel like I've contributed enough already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like I've not played enough of 10th to kind of pick out bits yet that aren't like faction specific stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Grey Knights not having hammers, and Tau being currently really boring in terms of their crisis suits because there is one loadout that is good. We're waiting for a patch on that one.
Well, if we're going to go with particular gripes for all armies,
Welcome to the moaning part of the podcast.
I
I think-
Soji's useful again.
I think that might be a podcast in and of itself.
Moan about 10th. Let's sit here and moan about 10th.
Which, by the way, we will not be doing because I don't agree with just moaning about stuff.
Yeah, it's pointless.
Fixing.
Fixing, that's another thing entirely. We can call it fixing, Warhammer.
Yeah, we'll call it fixing.
But let's not call it moaning.
Okay.
Positive attitude.
Positive.
Yes.
Positivity.
Passion, aggression.
Yeah, so next thing that I was thinking we could discuss would be the scenarios or the storyline we would like to go with, and the structure as well. Now I've got some ideas
Okay.
to run by you guys,
Okay.
which I thought you might like to
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
peruse.
so
as of whenever we get the first episode out, the Gigerian hive has emerged
Yes, it has.
from whatever homeworld it is on.
Well, as if this is that world.
Ah, that's true.
Don't,
Is it
don't,
behind?
don't, don't write yourself into a corner.
Yeah, good point.
yeah, I think the the last stand of the Nemean Lions was definitely getting a call out for aid.
It's definitely a hint that that was the
That was the implication. That was
implication
what
that would happen.
That was where they were trying to go with it.
Yeah.
Whether they get the aid they want or not, we don't know yet.
Well, so are we outlining the general storyline idea, or are we going with kind of like more of like where it's going to now? Yeah.
Well, I think the idea would be we'll get an idea of what we would like to see and what we'd like to do,
Okay.
because nothing is written in stone yet.
Yeah. No.
Quite literally, nothing has been written yet.
It's
So-
it's all going to be based on kind of how the games go.
Yeah, and this would be a good point to sort of introduce the idea of what kind of factions we are going to be playing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we will go into depth at a later date in different episodes. But it'd be a good idea to sort of get to grips with what we are going to be running.
Yeah.
And then we can build from there.
Mhm.
And I think the person that makes most sense to start with would be the only person that's actually been on the channel with their intended army.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
Whoops.
Yeah,
We'll get there. It's okay.
The backlog grows and the paint does not go on.
so yeah, I am running the Gigerian hive. It's a Tyranids force based on the xenomorphs from the Alien films and comics, and that toy line they introduced briefly.
The Kenner toy line sits
Kenner
up
toy
here
lines.
in my heart, along with the one episode they made of the cartoon, the Saturday morning Aliens cartoon.
For children.
For children. For children.
Still don't believe that existed.
I will show you the pilot, and yeah.
Yeah. So they have shown their face. They have encountered the Nemean lions. They
Ate the
brought-
Nemean Lions.
They ate the Nemean lions. They brought their queen.
How
Yeah,
did that go for the Queen? Oh wait, spoilers.
that's true. Are we releasing this before or after episode?
Don't know yet, so we better not use any spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just censor out the spoilers if there are spoilers.
mean,
I've already spoiled a movie, so maybe we'll.
Yeah,
just
but we don't want to
keep it
spoil
simple.
our own content.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll do a brief spoiler warning for how the episode went. The Queen did in fact die a little bit.
Well,
she died all over the place.
Yeah.
yeah, whether that necessarily means what it means in the grander scheme of the game,
Yeah. Like, there could be multiple monarchs. Who knows?
I mean, I believe in the alien and Tyranid laws. There's definitely not one overall queen. So.
Yeah. No.
yeah. And what's not to say that they can't get another one, or another
Yeah.
one evolves from the
Yeah. So yeah, they have shown their face. They've shown one of their major heavy hitters. They have done significant damage, and it is yet to be seen whether the Nemeans' call for help will be responded to. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Do we have any questions about the Gigerian hive that we might want to quickly
Yeah.
field? Have you got? Well, before lumping that on you, actually, do you have a rough idea of?
I have a rough idea.
Yeah.
I have a rough origin and like.
Let's take this opportunity maybe to have one question each, just to pierce the veil of the future.
You want me to boil it down to one?
Just one question. Make
You're
it.
asking the person with ADHD to boil something down to one question. My brain is gonna. Oh, okay. Give me a sec. John, do you want to take it first? Do you want to go first?
I'm thinking of a
Okay,
question.
all right.
Well, while those two are thinking, I've got one nice and easy.
Nice.
All right. So with the Gargarian Hive, they are obviously based on the Xenomorphs
Yep.
with some Tyranid rules
Yep.
in our games. Okay. So they're a custom Xenos faction.
Fully 3D printed.
In terms of the narrative for them, are they an intelligent species?
Yes. Yeah, I think they are they're an intelligent hive mind. I've sort of there's several different ways you can play Tyranids with the new codex, and I've sort of gone away from the massive focus on synapse stuff. So I want them more to feel like individualized units rather than a hive mind, which is why I'm going with the more big monsters, heavy hitters, because it's more they specialize to what they need to do what they need rather than working as one sole objective. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Off the back of that, while they're thinking as well, I'll expand a little bit. I am thinking of sort of, because they are taking a very quick time to paint, when I sort of branch into other army factions, there will be a degree of sort of they can sort of take control and puppeteer, almost have thralls brought in with some of the synapse focused creatures.
Do you have any ideas in terms of who you're going to be adding in?
No.
just a loose idea of the future.
Just a loose idea that gives me a lot of options.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential in there for that in terms of other...
That does not catch your question.
No, I know. Just roll it through and just get away with it. Yeah, that's fine. Any character plans?
That's a good question, because
Because Tyranids famously don't really have, outside of old One Eye, they don't really have characters.
yeah, I mean their
Swarmlord.
yeah, their characters. Their characters tend to be based on other factions' legends of them. Generally, Old One Eye is a legend of a Tyranid that keeps coming back, and same with the Swarmlord. But yeah, I think character-wise, I do want to give them sort of personality and things, especially with going down the Xenomorph route. And having them more as an intelligent species, I think it makes sense that they can develop sort of individual leadership ranks and individual personalities within that. Yeah.
I think I have my question now. I was
about to double dip on questions now. I've got the brain has finally kicked in. But please continue.
Okay.
Well, write them down, because we'll do that in the one-to-one interviews.
So lore-wise, is there something that they... Because obviously you said they're going to be an intelligent species, right?
Yeah.
Or they're going to have personalities, so they're going to hate stuff. So what is their number one, whether it's a faction or it's a planet or it's a thing, what is their bugbear that gets under their skin, basically? That would be my question.
Okay, that's fun. I think so. The kind of lore I have for their sort of discovery is they were sort of pretty. They were discovered on a ship, and then a crashing space hulk brought it to the planet that they've woken up on.
Okay.
Essentially, they latched onto a ship full of space marines. They landed. They were discovered by a guard outpost, and went from there. So I think, purely based on sort of what awoke them, their main sort of gripes would be with the human factions, with Guard, with Space Marines. Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you. I'm sorry it took me so long. I was just thinking like really hard to make sure it was a good question.
Now I've got questions. Now I have extra questions. It's not fair.
Well,
I can take more questions.
Well, no. We got to move on. So, and we need more material for later on.
That's true.
So,
I'm back.
yeah, we've got to leave those cliffhangers in. Right. So, just to sort of mention really that the Nemean Guard will kind of feature on and off. They're kind of like a narrative device that we'll be using to tell certain stories, but they're not going to be a major faction in our storylines going forward.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I have about 3,000+ points of them at the moment. But they're there to sort of play some certain parts. So.
And stand in when I don't have an army finished.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's fine, because...
Speaking of which, John,
Yes.
what would you be playing in the upcoming narrative?
Well... I've not actually told you this, but I'm going to change across the town now as well. No, I'm joking.
There we go. John and your sack.
No, I'm going to be bringing a Deathwatch team. They are from a watch fortress that I'm currently in the process of kind of fleshing out, so they're not fully there in terms of kind of like name and things like that. I'm trying to work out a good watch fortress name for them. But again, kind of a fairly standard approach to Deathwatch in terms of like the mix that they've got. Lore-wise, there's a lot of kind of filling in that needs to be done prior to the games kind of taking place. But there's a few kind of like characters that are going to be in there already, names pending and things like that. They're not quite as unfortunately solid as Joe's notes are already for his faction. The plan for them is going to be more of a mobile watch fortress in terms of like watch fortresses are typically quite static. I'm imagining them much more of kind of like almost like a fleet-based version of the Death Watch, going around, or ship-based version rather than being kind of like a big fleet. That kind of very separate entity of them. And the plan in terms of the name and kind of where I want to see them kind of go was. For the gripe of apparently being a big fan of hammers, I'm trying to find a good name that fits hammer that isn't just Mjolnir, so that's why the name's kind of pending there.
Didn't I find you one last time we spoke? I swear I did. I swear you noted it down somewhere. I don't know. That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. So long ago. Things happen. So yeah. And they are, again, spoilers for the game, going to be responding to the call to aid of the Nemean Lions. And I think we're probably going to see some potentially characters that were in that game maybe coming back as members of the Watch now that the chapter has suffered some losses, but they've proven themselves against the Xenos threat. Maybe it's characters that come back either as living or... There is a dreadnought that needs filling, so... but yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
So, we will open up to some questions, one each again, but keep in mind that John's not got quite as much backstory.
It's okay, I'm just going to improv the backstory right here and now, so I'm gonna write it down as I go, just in case I say something good and then I have to stick to it.
Maybe focus more towards future plans rather than lore, to make your life a little bit easier.
It's okay. Everything that's changed is simply just altered by the Inquisition. It was edited on the way in.
Who wants to go first?
Jamie, I think you may have volunteered yourself again.
I need a thunk.
Always me to go first, I suppose.
I have some questions, but you're welcome.
No, go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna not do a future plans question. I'm gonna make you think on the spot about lore.
Let's go.
So, how do your watch masters and your watch fortress really choose their recruits? What's the criteria? What do they have to do?
That is a good one, actually. So in terms of their recruitment process, kind of, I guess, to a certain degree, leaning into narratively what happened in the last game. I quite like the idea of them leaning into that kind of like that fleet element of it, is where there is like a huge kind of Xenos incursion, they will like arrive, and this kind of like the remaining survivors of like the Marines that were there are like, you're now part of this watch. And in particular, with it being the kind of the Gigarian, the Gigarian hive that they are, as this Xenos threat that isn't really known by the wider galaxy. It's like, okay, you've survived, but actually we can't let you go because you know about the Xenos that doesn't exist. And they kind of like swoop in and they're like, you've all proven yourselves, you're part of the watch now, but you can't go back. And it's almost like a kind of like a refuge of like these people that have been kind of picked up, and they've got like experiences of like all these different, Xenos factions, which actually the Imperium at large doesn't know about, even though they don't know about many of them. But you know what I mean? Like they kind
have
of
lots of like specialists.
Yeah, they're like hyper focused to kind of around like we've picked up people from kind of everywhere because like this squad encountered this random Xenos. One of them survived. They kind of, it's almost like that that Inquisition kind of like silencing thing of going, we don't want to risk this information getting out larger, so we've been kind of collecting up people kind of
and
from
they would then sort of go on to teach the wider faction about.
That's actually really interesting.
That's cool.
Yep, I thought about that.
Well done.
Nice.
Gonna need that recording so I can make a note of it for next time.
I have my question now. You stole my original one just as I thought of it, but it's fine. I have another one I thought. So I'm sure in a separate video, podcast, whatever, we will talk about like how basically every faction in 40k is bad in some way, because they're all like, weird and like they do bad things and whatever, but
There are no good guys in 40k.
there are no good guys in 40k.
It's a standard thing.
But what is your version of them? What is their main flaw? Like, what is
So
their
as
thing?
A faction.
Yeah.
So there's potentially like a couple of angles that they can go with in terms of what makes them, the grim dark nature of 40k. I think to a certain degree where, like, they are rescuing. They're in particular that kind of I guess the recruitment process is part of it. Like, they are taking people who essentially being taken from a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And being like, you're now part of this one, you can't ever go back.
Like the Jedi. Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
It's sort of like the old heresy Mortarian honor guard, where they essentially have a fake death and they don't have an identity.
Yeah, I've not actually read that bit about the honor guard. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, something along those lines. Maybe as well. Again, subject to change. I don't know whether they're they have like a particular. We want to try and keep these things secret, so maybe a little bit of a kind of like a Grey Knight-esque approach to knowing about Xenos. If you know too much, then that's a problem, kind of thing. But yeah, I think there's definitely kind of elements in terms of where the flaws are going to come into them. And I think that's really that's probably going to be an area that I'll explore more as I'm building, as I'm kind of playing, going with like, okay, how do I feel that they've played? How does that potentially lean into where those flaws maybe arrive? If it's the case that actually they, leave people or leave supporting factions or things like that. Could be as well a bit of a tech heresy. I do like the whole like Xenophase blade and the kind of the use of Xenos tech.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a little bit heretical in that sense of we can get away with it, but maybe there's a little bit more than would normally be in there. Love to see.
I suppose there's also maybe an element of like people that don't make the cut need to. Actually, to be fair, that would probably be that's probably definitely going to be another thing. It'd be like, you know too much and you can't come with us, or there's only room for one and there's two survivors. Bolt pistol loads. yet another faction that's like, yay, they've saved us. Oh no.
So coincidentally, I'm going to be adding in grey knights to them as well. Be like, oh no, we're saved. Oh no.
Well, that would nicely lead on to my very sly next question,
Go on.
which is more about your future endeavours. And what kind of things you might want to expand into as part of this inquisitorial force rather than just a Death Watch force.
So, I do like Grey Knights. They were going to be my 10th faction, so I definitely think there's probably going to be some potential, maybe down the line, of adding in some Grey Knights. I feel like narratively they don't fit quite as nicely, but I am looking at Knights as well. Probably some like recruited Freeblades after they get conversations of, yeah, the bugs here are pretty big. We're going to need some bigger stuff. So I think there's going to be some probably like, you know, Freeblades that have gone missing and are now a part of this you know, wider force.
So you're not just abducting Space Marines, you're now abducting Imperial nobles and knights.
Apparently anything. And I think one of the... There are like a lot of designs and things like that I really like. There's a lot of kind of designers that are putting together stuff and maybe saying about fitting some of those in. Maybe if we go like, if things start to go in certain ways in the kind of wider campaign, it could be that we actually are looking to try and add in some very questionable factions into a Death Watch army. But that's a much longer kind of bigger picture thing. Yeah, let's just say if there is a case of, yeah, if there is a phrase of by any means necessary, I feel like they're probably going to be taking that approach.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Els, would you like to do a little rundown of a project that will be coming a bit later down the line, maybe?
Oh my gosh. A rundown. I don't even know how to put them in like.
Well, it needs to be brief. We don't want to spend too long
Okay,
because we got a whole episode for you at some point.
Okay, a brief synopsis that I could say would be that my sisters are not normal sisters. That they are a...
Should we just clarify that these are going to be a Sisters of Battle faction that you are going to be bringing to the table?
So they are a Sisters of Battle faction, but they are a Sisters of Battle faction that are based on Fenris. Is that
Way, well done.
Okay. Last time I mentioned that it was wrong. And they are based in the heart of the Fang, which is, and they are women that have been sort of raised around the Space Wolves and their way of life, and they've basically decided that Russ is like their, well, it's complicated, but I'll narrow it down. Russ is basically that he's their leader, but they still follow the Emperor, and they're very animalistic, very obviously melee based, and like they're tough as balls. Like, trying really hard not to swear then. They are tough as balls, and I love them so much, and I've already started writing their fan fiction because I'm not over my Tumblr phase, obviously.
It's not fan fiction. Just say it's just fiction. It's fine. You've started writing. You've started writing their books. It's
in the
Black
context of Warhammer,
Library,
it's homebrew
I'm
law.
coming for
Yeah.
you.
Homebrew law.
Because it's not like, you know, I guess you are a fan of them. You've made them, and you know, it's your fiction. But like, it's your fiction.
So,
How long is the Nemean Lions book?
there is quite a lot of Nemean's backstory that I wrote a long time ago.
Just law.
I need to start writing some books.
If it helps you guys, I have their entire like thing planned. Their whole backstory. It's all planned. I just need to write it. I've written one chapter already.
Well, we'll save that for your...
Yes.
right.
Some of those are going to be longer than others, I feel.
Yes, I have a funny feeling they might be. Right, so...
Yeah.
believe it's your turn to go first.
Probably is. So, narratively, how do you think they're gonna get to where we are within the galaxy? Are they, is it going to be a case that they're responding to a call? Do you think it's going to be how do you want them to arrive?
Ideally, I would want them to. I would want some. I'd want one of your factions to go there with the intention of, either taking it over or, making a deal to have, a 50-50 kind of, situation. But then that faction realising this isn't, a group of prissy women, female berserkers, shield maidens that are going to whoop our asses, if that makes sense.
Very much enjoyed that you said sorry and then proceeded to say it
Yeah.
again.
Just bleep it.
Okay, so they're essentially already there.
Yeah, I would want them to be, in an ideal world, I would want them to be attacked. But if
So do they do kind of are they only based there, or do they have covenants in other place?
they're a very sort of tight-knit group. They have their they have their ways, and they know that their ways as that those sort of sisters would not be really accepted anywhere else, because they kind of live in not harmony, but they have what is as close to equality with the Space Wolves as is possible.
Okay.
But I will not say why, because I want to save it.
Okay. But they could potentially have convents.
They could potentially have convents, and I would want them to try and recruit outside of the Fang.
As a thing to jump off of that, would it potentially make sense with their sort of devotion to Russ that they have potentially wound up on this planet in search of
him.
Russ is,
Yes,
yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because he was a silly boy and he ran away. Yeah,
I get a goal.
I know, but I was trying not to swear. So.
Well, that was a short and sweet little follow-on question there, wasn't it?
That doesn't count as my full question, does it?
No.
That's
Go for it.
Do you want to go next, or?
I mean, it's up to you. Have you got another one ready, or was that your gambit?
I don't have one ready yet.
Figured not.
Let's
Come on
start.
then.
I tried to too, Joe,
You're at more of an advantage because I know we've spoken about
Yes,
my girls
that's very
before together, so.
Yeah. Okay, right. We'll do a nice easy one. Now, I will preface this question because I know what you're like. Keep it a short answer because you will go on forever if I let you.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Why don't you give us a little brief explanation of your favourite character you've created for this army?
Okay.
Elevator pitch.
I hate her, but I've made her that way specifically because she's gonna be so in their book she's basically gonna be the anchor point. So her name, so I'm using the Celestine model. No, that's not the one I want to talk about. Okay. Right, so the Morven Var model I am using, her name is going to be Lagatha, the Iron Hand of Russ. So, okay, short and
Such
sweet.
a good name.
Thank you so much.
Such a cool name.
So, in a nutshell, she was attacked by a wolf as a baby, and basically became deformed, got severely cast a shadow on her for her entire childhood, and she grows up to be this twisted, bitter, she's a crazy soldier, but she's a good leader because of it. And the reason why I hate her is because she's got this side to her when she's on the battlefield where she is the one in charge, and she is the one that pushes forward, and she will throw herself out into the battlefield and kill herself if it means that the sisters will come out on top. And I hate her for it, but I love her as well. She's my baby, and whatever. So there you go. That's a rounded down version as much as I can do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Solid. That's such a solid name.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some living up to now.
I got some Jesus, I got some competition.
Right. So, what does your specific sister's culture look like? What does it borrow from the Space Wolves? What does it? What's different?
Knowing a little bit.
Summary.
Keep it clean.
Oh my god. Okay.
And yes, a summary, not a narrative.
Okay. Oh, this is so difficult. Oh my god, I just want to go on a tangent. Okay. So.
Should we make this a little bit easier? Pick one thing.
One
Yeah.
thing.
So I'll narrow it down a bit. Like, what is their free time when they're not like away from the battlefield? What do they like their hobbies?
So
Typically.
they're very much sort of their devotion does not stop. So, but I think their devotion on the battlefield is kind of different to their devotion in like we'll say real life. So they they take turns with keeping up with their altars, and they basically are the caretakers for the Space Wolves. So if they've come back off a mission and they're injured, they're the ones that they take care of them, and then in return the Space Wolves protect them. So they kind of, like I said, they're very kind of close-knit, so they take care of each other in order to benefit each other. And then, obviously, like, they're Space Wolves, so, they get a little crazy. And they're not, because I always thought that the Adeptus Sororitas as a group, like, as a faction in general, they're very serious, and I didn't really like that. That's why I wanted to, tweak them and change them. I wanted them to be able to have life outside of, praising the Emperor, and, like, obviously with the She-Wolves, their devotion to Russ and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they're very much sort of, like, normal. They're not normal, but as normal for them as they can be, if that makes sense.
So, do they have meat holes?
Yes.
Nice. So, Jamie, what about your faction?
My faction? Well, I shall be bringing a faction of the Necrons, a custom dynasty, which is currently being called the Hierotek dynasty. Mm-hmm. And if anyone wants any pointers for where that came from, it's inspired by the old Hierophants from the Tomb Kings of old fantasy.
Nice.
So, there you go.
Nice.
There is lots of ideas and thoughts and plans, but I'll let you ask some questions, and I instead of going into the minutiae of what I've got in mind.
Okay. Well, I will ask a question which is relevant to how kind of Necrons are generally being run. Mm-hmm. But is this being part of the narrative of them being on a tomb world, or are they coming in a different way?
So in terms of the campaign that we'll be running,
yep,
they will be coming in as an invader to the world, and they're going to be hunting down a specific artifact that they desire. So to sort of give you a little bit of a hint of the background for this faction is that although they do have nobles, they are actually run by cryptex. The entire dynasty is actually run by the cryptex.
Expecting to see some constructs then as well.
There will be plenty of constructs, but they're not construct focused.
Okay.
But the cryptex are the actual leaders of the faction.
Cool.
What is their sort of relationship with the sort of Flayer curse and things? is that a thing that heavily affects them? Have they found their unique way of dealing with it?
And I guess the Destroyer...
Destroyer cults?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a curse as well, isn't it? Was that a... It's the Flame virus and the...
Destroyer curse,
yeah.
Yeah.
So they hang on, let me think about this. So the general concept is that they view both more or less as a weapon, a tool. Okay, they don't have a lot of respect for them, but they appreciate them as a tool of war. So flayers kind of appear as and when they want, as
flayers want to do.
Flayers will want to do. So they don't have any negative thoughts towards them per se. They just kind of turn up and do their thing and then disappear again. The destroyers, though, they almost will employ them like attack dogs. So you can kind of imagine that they will lock their destroyer cults in these tesseract vaults, much like they do with the Catan. And when they want a very quick and easy way of destroying something, they'll just unleash a swarm of destroyers on a target.
What do they have, like? Do they still have a relationship with the Silent King, or are they kind of pulled away from that because they're very much their own kind of? They're in like their own little box.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like that and the other dynasties.
Is that a good question?
That is a very good question.
So they are very much subservient to the Silent King. So the Hyrotech dynasty themselves, being a mostly cryptech and science-based dynasty, as it were. I mean, calling them a dynasty is probably not even the right word for it, really. But it's an easy shorthand. They kind of see themselves as the developers and evolutionists of their entire species. They want to improve upon the Necron tier, or the Necrons. They don't actually want to go back to flesh. They want to make their immortality more like flesh, but not actually go back to being mortal. And they are subservient to the Silent King. They very much support him in his role, and that they very much believe that he is the answer to the galaxy's problems. Which also does mean that people like Imhotep and the Sautec dynasty, they very much do not get on at all.
Are we hinting towards a Silent King model at some point?
We are definitely hinting at Silent King model at some point.
This is Jamie we're talking about. The impulsive Warhammer buyer.
Sarek is definitely one of my favourite characters in the whole of 40k, and always has been. Well, I say always has been, ever since I came back in 8th. I've always wanted to see him come back. So...
You read Infinite and the Divine, and you will have a new appreciation for Trazyn.
Oh, I love Trazyn as well. I love Trazyn. I love Zarek. I love Zaraz as well. But a little sneak thing that these guys know. I do have a Zaraz model, but he will not be Zaraz. He will be my cryptech leader for the Hyrotech dynasty. So
Everyone knows Zaraz. It's just.
I will have to buy another version of that kit just to build the normal version as well.
It's such a beautiful kit when built that I do not want to build.
Well, hopefully the version I create will be quite as good, if not better.
I'm sure it'll be wonderful.
It's a good base to work on in any way, shape, or form.
It will be a very cool base to work from.
Nice.
Yeah. You know that it's going to be either as good or better. It cannot be worse. Unless you do something seriously wrong.
Well, I'm probably going to cut him in half, so we'll see.
Lore-wise, I think this yeah. Your statement there about them kind of like they almost feel like Necron Admech,
kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
Which hilariously almost works into that color scheme as well.
Yes. Yes, probably should mention there will be red in that kind of scheme.
But
It's just it's convenient little convergence of it.
Yeah, unintentional, but yes.
Yeah.
the structure of the way we want to run the campaign, or sort of the rough idea of what we're going to do in terms of how we're going to structure a narrative. Because obviously, and it's worth pointing out at this stage that we haven't made it clear already, this is very much the narrative focused channel, and that's what we want to do. We want to tell stories through our games. So currently we're building up this idea of a new Xenos hive appearing on an Imperial world. We're going to assume it's an Imperial world for now. Probably an Imperial world.
Yep.
And we're going to have other factions sort of appear and cause chaos and doing their own little shenanigans.
Probably be moving to maybe other planets in the system as well.
At some point in time, we will probably move off world into other stuff. But for that first sort of narrative run, which I'm thinking will probably take around six games or so.
Yeah, I've never run a Crusade game, Crusade series before.
But this is not quite the way I would normally do it. So my concept is going to be that, and I'm sure many of you will have seen this kind of concept before, will be you have a branching set of missions and storylines based on the previous game. So the idea will be that obviously that first game, the Hive versus the Nemeans, was kind of on its own. It's not part of the overall branch.
Yep.
But that first game, which will hopefully be Deathwatch versus Tyranids, or Deathwatch versus Gargarian Hive, based on the winner of that game, doesn't necessarily determine who gets benefits and strengths in the next game. It just determines which mission and which factions are involved in the next game.
Cool.
So, for example, and this probably won't be as part of the first branch, but an example would be Game 1, Deathwatch versus Tyranids. Tyranids win. Okay, so we're going to go down branch. We're going to go down the right-hand branch.
Yep.
So the Tyranids won that game. So in the next game, the Tyranids are now invading a city, and the Deathwatch are defending it. In that game, the Tyranids win again. So the next mission would be they've breached the city, and now they're trying to massacre the civilians.
Okay, so yeah, so it's like a stages kind of going through. And
However, if we wind back,
Yep.
Deathwatch won and Tyranids failed. Well, the next mission is Deathwatch push out of the city and start trying to find the Hive Queen.
Ooh.
So it's like lots of branches that will kind
It's
of
just
come up as
branching
like,
narratives. So
as they go.
even if the Tyranids keep winning, so they push into the city, they start massacring the civilians, they take out the spaceport generators, they then get to the High Command. That final battle, there's no benefit. The Tyranids aren't getting arbitrary benefits, which basically decides the outcome of the game before it begins. It's just the narrative changes. So that final battle, instead of it being a heroic Deathwatch victory, it's the last stand of the Deathwatch as they try and evacuate the last members of Imperial bureaucracy off the world.
I really like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
makes sense.
And obviously, we've got multiple factions as well. So depending on the structure, it might depend on who actually comes in and out.
Yeah.
So if the Tyranids keep winning, the Deathwatch might fade off, and the Necrons come in.
Yeah.
And fight the Tyranids. But then we'll have little bits where they'll go off and fight the Deathwatch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how would that work in terms of, say, the Tyranids breach the city, they get pushed back, the Tyranids win again? Would that then go back into breaching the city, or would that be a slightly different
It's just
branch?
a different path on the branch. So
Yeah.
the narrative will shift slightly. So if you get that back and forth, then we kind of go into almost a stalematey style of game, where the ending is more of a loose ending rather than a definitive one side wins, one side
Yeah.
doesn't.
I'm imagining it's not like a Tyranids like breach into the city, they get pushed back, and then we replay the game where they're trying to breach into the city, and it just becomes this back and forth like this until.
I mean, if that happens, then that's a good opportunity to have another game mode where the next faction comes in and really stirs stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could be like, if they, fail to get into the city, there's like maybe like another game that's like there, but this time the defenses are weaker, or it's a different arrangement or something like that because of like the first attack. It's not like the first attack didn't happen. It's that something else has now occurred, or they found a
Yeah.
different point in the wall, or something has happened as a kind of result of it. Yeah, no, it makes good sense as a game system, and as a narrative driver for it, and it means we can all kind of potentially get as many games as we want into it, and just slot in kind of wherever the various different games. Yeah.
Nice.
And there's definitely scope for us, potentially, depending on how things go and who's available at the time. We might have more than one narrative running at the same time.
Yeah.
There might be occasions where we don't have access to our Gagarin Hive for a while, so we might have a tangent or a tangential parallel game system going on. Maybe on the local moon or something, where the Necrons are fighting the Death Watch or the Sisters.
Sisters on the moon.
Yeah. So
Moon sisters.
No.
Moon sisters.
No.
and there's definitely some
Kevin.
scope for some strange alliances as well.
I do enjoy a strange alliance. I'm
And there will be some strange alliances because a certain someone has a very large army that can grow very quickly.
I feel like you're the only person who's never going to get a strange alliance occurring.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You have unfortunately painted yourself
Into a corner.
Yeah.
as the bad guy in every single fight.
I'll always be the antagonist.
Yeah.
Although your statement about potentially taking over does mean that actually there is scope for you having a weird
That is true.
coalition going on. So maybe we'll have to magnetize the heads on everything so that you can have a facehugger version for every single version.
Can you facehug a Necron?
I'm
If you're determined enough.
sure you could try.
Because they don't really have mouths. If you ever watched any of the animations, it's just a glowing
Yeah,
Yeah, but
glass.
it would be difficult. But that's assuming that the facehuggers is how they reproduce. That's not necessarily how they control.
that is true. It could be some synapse nonsense. I just love the idea of having to
That's
magnetize
bad.
every single head. Just be like, oh, Joe's taking over my army, right? I'll just swap out all the heads for the other version.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to do something similar with the Necrons, I think.
Yeah,
Because I read about mind shackle scarabs.
that's stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was just thinking,
Yeah.
do you ever watch Falling Skies?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't say I finished it, but yes, I have watched Falling Skies. But yeah, and
And the
that.
guys with the things on the spine. I was just thinking,
That.
mind shackle scarabs, just stick that on some guardsmen, job done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool idea.
Read the Infinite.
I'm
And the
going
Divine.
to. I've got to read Twice Dead King first, though.
And the second one.
Yeah, well, Twice Dead King is the two.
It's the series.
But yes.
And then read.
Yes, then I'll read Infinite and Divine.
Yeah.
I want to, trust me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So uneasy, strange alliances across the board for everyone.
Yes, pretty much.
Yep. Always fun.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, narratively, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Happy with that, I think. Yeah.
Anyone have any ideas of where they might like to go in terms of narrative?
I think if we get the stuff together, if I get the stuff together, I think some nice close quarters fighting would be quite good fun.
You mean boarding action?
Boarding actions? Maybe some boarding actions? Or I was more thinking in terms of the going into... I essentially want to recreate Aliens, but with a bunch of Death Watch going into a hive and proper bug hunt.
Yeah, that's fair.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the narrative for the Gagarin Hive is they need to find a way off planet.
So, narratively, aliens.
Yeah.
We're answering some questions I had for the follow-up thing, so you know.
Yeah, so narratively aliens, they need to find a way off planet. That is where they will be going next.
I can definitely see some games in the future on board ships where suddenly an alien queen has appeared on a ship.
Given an alien queen as a hierophant and the size of a boarding action board, I don't care how big you make the boarding action board. Hierophant ain't fitting.
Challenge accepted. We're going to be making a massive board.
It's just like the corridors.
There is a
Ever
file.
heard of a hangar bay?
It's just a hangar bay.
Yes. The whole board would just be a hangar bay.
Yeah. But there is a file that would be perfect for that, with the queen like as she is in Aliens, sort of attached to the big old egg sack thing in the hangar bay.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's gonna be some good. Well, looks like you've got a really big thing to make. And then use about 3 paints to do it.
And all of 20 minutes to paint it.
I was pushed to 4 paints. You know, you've got the body and then the egg sac to paint.
Oh wow.
That's true. 4 paints.
4 paints.
Probably discussion for another time would be actually the changes I've already proposed to you guys about the Crusade system as well.
Yeah.
But I think that might be a topic for another day,
Yeah.
because that's going to be quite a lengthy one, I think. But yes, we will be using Crusade, but we will be using a heavily modified version of it.
Nice.
We like modifying things, it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point to end on. Really, is that we are going to be playing a narrative. We are playing narrative games. We are going to be here to basically have a laugh, play some stories, or play some games, tell some stories.
Yeah.
Hopefully, do more of these podcasts and have a bit of a laugh and a chat.
It's more about it's more about the story than the rules.
It's more about the story and the rules, and therefore, with that in mind, we will be making up our own rules. We will be homebrewing stuff, not just rules and amendments to the core rules or the Crusade system. But in the future, I'm very much keen to actually have a look at homebrewing some unit rules as well, and doing some custom rules. I certainly know that we've spoken about bringing boarding Marines into the 41st millennium.
Those shields back. It's just chunks of metal. Like, how hard can it be to bring them in?
So, yeah, there's a few things that I think would be quite cool to do, and there's a lot of cool models out there that we don't necessarily get to use. I know, obviously, those of you that are using more 3D printing than I will want to use some very cool models.
Absolutely.
So, we are going to make our own rules to a certain degree.
There's a certain predator riding a T-Rex.
Oh my god.
Somehow incorporate him.
I mean, just the T-Rex alone is enough, but you know,
Like a xenomorph T-Rex.
it's a sentence that just sounds good.
Yeah.
There are 3 different sculpts, so...
So 3 of them.
yeah, well, of course.
I'm going to need some bigger guns.
So yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
All happy with that then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ladies and
absolutely.
gentlemen, brilliant. Well, if you're okay with that, I think we'll wrap up then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you very much. This has been Mead Hall Gaming. I've been Jay.
I've been John.
I've been Elle.
I've been Joe.
And thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon in the Mead Hall. Bye for now.
Ah.